Welcome, everyone, to this information session regarding the 2025 administration of the Real College California survey. And really what it is the Real College California Basic Needs Among California Community College Student Survey. And just really pleased to have you all here and excited that you're all signed up to be part of this incredible opportunity to give voice to our students. Next slide. So I want to introduce the team that's here today. My name's Tamil Gilkerson. I am the Chancellor of the Peralta Community College District, but I am the co-chair, I'm not the chair, sorry, the chair of the CEO Affordability, Food and Housing Access Task Force that is helping sort of bring this survey to the state once again, and want to call out Sadie Brown, who is our program manager for the Real College California Coalition, which many of you are a part of, and this is a Real College project. So we're really excited about this partnership. And I want to turn it over to have my two colleagues from the RP group introduce themselves.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Katie Brohan. I'm the Director of Research, Evaluation, and Development at the RP Group and played a big role in the last administration of the Real College Survey. So happy to be here.
Hi, everyone. Alyssa Nguyen. I'm the Senior Director of Research and Evaluation for the RP Group, and I too supported the last administration of the Real College California Student Survey. Nice to see you all.
We really, first of all, I just want to say that Katie and Alyssa have been incredible partners in this work and was really pleased to be working with them before. And so excited to be repartnering for the task force with the RP group to help us in this endeavor. So today it's going to be a brief sort of information session where we're going to kind of give you a little bit of background on the survey, give survey content information, talk about the logistics and the timeline for the rollout of the survey. So that's kind of where we're going. And we'll have time at the end for questions as well, okay? So for context, for those who don't know, this is the report cover of the 2023 Real College survey that we did. And we had 66,741 respondents, students who responded. We actually had over 80,000 students respond, but 66,000 of them were actually usable responses. So it's an important part of the process to understand that we have more students may respond, but they may not be usable responses. So 88 colleges participated in that survey that we did in 2023. And the average respondents were about 758 respondents per campus and college. And so some colleges had many, many more. Some had very, very small response rates. And so the goal of having this information session today is to set everybody on the right stage so that we can actually galvanize our community and get as many students to respond and give us this good feedback for the survey. I want to say that this survey data is the largest. This report was the largest national survey on basic needs in the nation. It has been used and cited both in developing advocacy that's happened here in the state and actually nationally. It's been used by the CSU system, the UC system, and sort of in these other works that we do to advocate for different parts of meeting the needs of the students in California. So I'm really grateful to every college and everybody who participated this last year, and just want to say that your work and the advocacy you do on behalf of students, we are trying to, again, undergird and support the efforts that you're doing on your campuses. Next slide, please. So I am thrilled to announce that 99 colleges are signed up this year to participate in the survey. So that's pretty darn good, right? Woo! Yep. Thank you, Joseph. Really excited because I think we actually have a lot of opportunity to tell the story of our students and look across the demographics. And I hope that if you haven't read the 2023 survey, you'll go back and read it, because what we saw with regional analysis, with actually parsing out students based on disproportionate impact and things like that, we were able to go deeper and see where students are feeling higher rates of insecurities across the campuses so that we can actually move together as a system to begin to address and think about the work that we do in advocacy and on the ground support that you all are doing at your campuses. So again, here is the list that I have as of last night. So again, a couple signups. So if you don't see your college here for some reason, I either made a clerical error or you're not signed up. And absolutely, we want to get to 100. Let's do it. So if you don't see a campus here, your sister college, feel free to reach out to them and be like, hey, wouldn't it be great if we could give a district-wide presentation and we should all be here? So these are the list of the colleges, but please feel free to reach out to me and to Sadie Brown if you have questions about whether or not your college is signed up for the survey. I imagine most of you are because I sent you all emails. But all right, so now we're going to turn it over to talk a little bit about the survey content, timelines, and get going on the logistics and other things. So thanks so much. So I'll turn it over to Katie to do this next part.
Great, thank you. So hopefully almost everyone in this room is familiar with the survey content, either having participated in the past or having read the reports that have come out in the past, specifically the 2023 report. But just as a reminder, so originally this survey was administered by the Hope Center. It has now been adapted to include some California Community College. This is part of a national survey that was developed. We do have some CCC specific items in there, but at the core, we do have 38 items specifically measuring food insecurity, housing insecurity, and homelessness. And these 38 items are broken up into sub-items that roll up into these 3 core metrics. And so, for example, when we're talking about food, we're asking students questions like, in the past 30 days, did you ever cut the size of your meals or skip meals because there wasn't enough food? On the housing insecurity side, we're asking students where they've been living for the past 30 days to get a sense of the stability and security of their housing situation. And when it comes to homelessness, we are asking them outright, are you homeless? However, the concept of homelessness is actually a lot broader than we traditionally think of it, more stereotypically of sleeping on a park bench. There's a lot more experiences that a student can have that can have them be considered homeless. So we're really trying to understand students' needs. In this survey, what makes it extra special is we're also really trying to dig deep into students' awareness and utilization of campus resources and their experiences with the various services that our campuses have to provide. So it's one thing for campuses to offer suites of services like food pantries and the like, but if students aren't aware of them, then that's a problem. And so we're trying to get a sense of, are students aware of what resources are available to them, and are they accessing those resources? All right, next slide. Okay, so the timeline. We are gearing up to get this survey out to students. So as we think about the spring, our goal is to administer the survey beginning March 3rd, and then have the window open from March 3rd to March 28th. Now, that does not mean that you need to survey for that entire time period. If March 10th, for example, is a better launch date for you, that is completely fine. Every college is going to have their own timeline that works best for them. We recommend strongly you keep the survey open for a minimum of 2 weeks. Longer is better, although we do find that 2 weeks really is that sweet spot where you're going to get the highest participation rates. And then, of course, every time you send out a reminder, you're going to get a slight bump in response rates. But a minimum of 2 weeks. If you can get it out March 3rd, that's fantastic. But if that doesn't work for you, it's fine to wait a little bit. We would really love to close the survey on March 28th if possible. As soon as your survey launches at your college, we will provide, the RP group will provide you with a link to a dashboard where in real time, you can see high-level results for your colleges. These are just descriptives for each of the questions. Like we mentioned in that previous slide, we have those 38 items that roll up into the 3 core constructs. So you won't be able to do that rolling because it's just going to be the exact descriptive for every single individual question, but you will get a sense of how things are looking if you're interested. And most importantly, you'll be able to see what response rates are looking like at your college to see if you need to do another reminder. So again, as soon as it's administered, those links are ready and available for you. And every time you click on that link, if one student has filled out the survey in the last minute, that student will be included in that, what we call a data dashboard. However, once the survey as a whole system-wide closes, then by April 30th, if not sooner, each college that participated will receive a unitary data file that is the student level file for your college so that you, if you'd like, can conduct your own analyses, you can dig into different areas of interest, and you can roll that data up into the 3 core constructs of food insecurity, housing insecurity and homelessness. And we will provide you with enough technical information so that you'll know how to do that with the data that we provide. Okay, so April 30th, you'll have the data. If you'd like to play with it, feel free, no need to. And then by June 30th, our goal is to have the statewide report published. So the big question colleges are always asking the second we give them their college data is, how does this compare to statewide? Well, you're just going to have to wait until June 30th to figure that out. But hopefully the information you have at the college level will satisfy you until then. So hopefully that report will be ready to go by June 30th. And then in the fall, by November 30th, we will present these findings statewide. So as we all know, come end of June, folks disperse. And so to make sure that we're getting the most bang for our buck with respect to getting traction to drive change with these findings, we will do a statewide presentation in the fall when everyone is back and ready to listen and act. So, all right.
Okay, now Alyssa will go over logistics.
Thanks, Katie, for sharing the timeline. So in terms of logistics, there are a number of materials that we will be providing colleges to support the survey administration, as well as the usage of the information locally to support and understand your students' basic needs. So for the colleges, what we'll provide is boilerplate invitation and reminder language that you can use to include in an email and social media or Canvas notifications to communicate with your students, and the link to the survey so that you can send the survey links out to your students in the ways that work best for your institution. In addition, we will provide a PDF copy of the survey so that you can see the survey in its entirety, and the boilerplate invitation messages will include the online survey link that you can use to send to your colleges. The online survey link is an open online survey link because it is entirely anonymous, and so it's the same survey link to all students and to all colleges. We will also, as Katie mentioned earlier, provide to you all the link to the real-time aggregated survey results for your college. So based on the timeline, we expect, we're hoping that colleges can start sending out the survey links out early March. And so around the first week of March, we'll be sending to all colleges the link to the real-time aggregated survey results or data dashboard, survey dashboard, so that you can start seeing what your response rates look like and the overall sort of results on each of the items as we're collecting the information through the month of March. At the end of the data collection period, sometime in April, we'll provide to you all the unitary survey data. And so we will be sharing the unitary survey data through a secure file transfer protocol site. So during that process, what we're going to be doing is sending to you all a username and a password to a secure folder with your college's unitary survey data for the Real College survey. So that's what's happening before and after the survey administration. So during, what we're going to be doing to help sort of boost survey response rates is we're going to be providing $250 checks to students who complete the survey via random lottery. And what we ask is if locally institutions have funding, that another way you can increase engagement is to up the incentive for your students by offering any local incentives in your local outreach as a way to further boost response rates. So that sort of covers all of the general sort of logistics for the survey administration. So I'm going to look to my colleagues, Tamil and Katie, to see if there are any other details you'd like to share.
Yeah, so I think one question that Natalia had was, when will that universal link go out to everybody with the direct information to begin setting up for March? When should we expect that to go out? When will everybody get the
We will
survey?
be sending the package of information and the online survey links around the end of February for it. So you will get it in advance of the March 3rd date.
And just as a reminder, as is pretty standard for RP group surveys, we'll send you the link, but we're also going to send you boilerplate language that you can use so you don't have to think about that yourself. So language you can send to students. Of course, you're free to adapt it however you see fit, but feel free to use it. And then as well as stock language you can use for reminders, both in social media and in email.
So, the reminder to everyone, the way the survey works is students drop down and select their institution that they attend. So that's what they meant by everybody will get the survey. And so again, for some folks in multi-college districts where students attend, multiple campuses and stuff like that, and again, it's on the student to self-select where it is that they attend. And so that's how it works. So Michael asked the question, what do you do to ensure that the final sample is representative of the community college population? Do you compare to known demographics, weight the responses?
We have descriptives in the report and in the surveys where we compare it to the known demographics or the general statewide demographics. We don't do any weighted responses for the work because in general, we're talking about pretty large samples for these statewide efforts. And so if locally you all would like to check to ensure that like locally you have general and representative samples, you're more than welcome to do that. And you can use it with your unitary data for any sort of additional analyses that makes the most sense for your college/district.
I did want to note that that everybody should look. So one of the exciting things about the 2023 report is that actually the student sample characteristics, at least statewide, was very, very representative of the student population that we see statewide. So from a statewide perspective, it was good. Again, we didn't do the individual analysis on the colleges, but from a large lens, we were happy to see, and we actually had an uptick in our queer communities, transgender students as well, like transgender identified students actually responding to the survey. So we're really glad to see the work that the colleges did to reach out to like multiple programs. So this gets to Luis Enrique Flores's question, were there any best practices learned from the last survey administration? In other words, strategies to improve participation and response rates? And I think what I would say again is those local incentives. So these incentives are on behalf of the Real College California Coalition and the Affordability Task Force. So we're putting these up as statewide sort of pieces to do this out of our funding. And so the hope is that, again, there may be special things on your campus that people are like not used to. And then the opportunity at the end, students will have the opportunity to include their information, right? So that they can be in the random sample to be pulled, and you would get that information for your campus. But one of the things that came out of the last report, which is really, really true, is the fact that what happened is there wasn't a lot of, some colleges didn't have a lot of engagement, and that students said that they were in pockets across the campuses, and cross collaboration on your campuses was a big piece. So I recommend really that you're out to your campus community, the faculty and the staff, to really talk about the fact that the survey will be administered, to encourage them with EOPS and your Emoja programs, your HSI program, all of your programs, to say how can we actually help come together to really consider how we can get students to fill out the survey. Certainly Canvas announcements are great because it hits all of your students. This is an area where, we've seen some best practices when colleges do that like internal dialogue. So everybody's giving the same message. And my special counselor tells me, hey, Tamil, fill out that survey. It'd be really good to have your voice in it. So hopefully that helps, but I can open it up if there are other things that folks heard. Ideas that people have related to best practices. Alyssa, Katie, anything I didn't offer?
Yeah, the other thing that we would add to it is multiple ways for students to access the survey. So what we have found, not just in the last one, but also just any survey administration, is that, so many colleges, for example, rely on email for it. But as we know, not everyone checks their email. And so what we have found at other institutions and a number of institutions is the use of text messaging for the surveys in colleges and districts that have the ability to text message survey links and things like that. They have seen greater response rates that way, because again, it goes back to this idea of meeting students where they're at and making the survey and participation in the survey in the most accessible ways. And so in our boilerplate messages, we provide some suggestions for looking at if it's possible for your district and or college to look at text messaging. We have also found that posting it on Canvas modules seems to also reach out to students and increase response rates that way, because many institutions are using Canvas as the learning module where all students are accessing, whether they're taking online classes or not. And this gets back to what Tamil was sharing in terms of really engaging with other practitioners on your campus to help get the word out and to help sort of distribute the online survey links, so that we're reaching out to as many students and putting it on their radar in all of the different ways that we have access to.
So does the survey include questions pertaining to transportation? Or are the questions focused on 3 areas noted? So Katie, could you take this question, please?
Yes, I can. So we actually do have some newer questions this year that we've added that are focused beyond just food insecurity, housing insecurity, and homelessness, to ask about other basic needs, including physical health supports, mental health supports, childcare, and transportation specifically. And the one question that was on the 2023 administration, that is also again on the 2025 administration, is asking about different assistance programs that the student has used. And so it will say, in the past 12 months, did you receive assistance from any of the following programs like SNAP, WIC? And one of the options in that is transportation assistance. So yes, there are older questions on there, and then there is a subset of newer questions on there that get at transportation as well as some other basic needs.
So next question was, do you send it to all the students enrolled in spring 2025? And yes, as your college or institution get to decide who it is you're sending to, but we recommend sending it to the largest group of students. So spring 25 or fall, students that were enrolled fall and spring. So it's up to you how you want to send that out. Are there questions that break down credit versus non-credit?
That's a good question. So not at the moment. It is something we might want to discuss. Right now, there is a question that asks students about whether they are taking classes full-time or part-time. So theoretically, we could add non-credit, correct?
We could. So
Yep.
we'll take the. It sounds like unitary data will not be identifiable by researchers locally, so we cannot link to our own data. Is that the case?
So it's a good question. So at the end of the survey, students do have the option to provide their student ID, and we explain as to why that is a benefit to the college. And the fact that by doing so, we still are preserving, the anonymity, how we will report back these results in a rolled up fashion, but it is a choice that students have to make as to whether they want to do that or not. It's completely optional. However, when the data file does go back to you, it will include the student IDs for the students who choose to include that. So it won't be universal, but just know that for a subset.
So Michael wanted to provide a reminder, and I think we're well aware, just a reminder that a large sample does not mean an unbiased one. Sorry, Michael, if my answer in response to your early question didn't respond in the way that you wanted. We do understand that, especially, so we try to address that in the report and talk about it, but we do understand people are self-selecting. We understand that this actually doesn't necessarily connect to sometimes we can't make a direct correlation to the work that we're doing on our campuses and years go by. So but this is a snapshot in time that we're using, and we're doing our best to delineate those things. But Katie and Alyssa, if you want to respond to his concern.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I think this speaks to the need to disaggregate your findings by different variables to ensure that all students, you're looking at the data for subgroups of students as opposed to only the overall, right? So you're looking at for LGBTQ plus students, the report does do some specific breakdowns, but a good example is, as is the case with the majority of surveys, there's going to be a higher proportion of female students filling it out relative to male students. And so that is something to consider. And it's important to then look at your data by gender, for example, right?
So Sophia asked, do you recommend we table the survey on campus to increase response rates? I think it's a great idea. Obviously, that's similar to what Alyssa was saying, multiple ways to communicate with students, letting them know. So having a computer available or iPad available for students to complete the survey could be a great opportunity as well. So great idea. Katrina wrote, is it best to start the survey on the same date in a multi-college district? And I would say absolutely. I think it's good to be working in concert, right? Again, students who attend multiple campuses would get something similar. And so if the whole district is communicating, maybe it goes out to all students with the logos from, all, and the messages go out. And for Sabrina, who asked the follow-up question about districts might receive a full report for their colleges, again, districts and colleges are not receiving reports. You're receiving the data to be able to do your own reporting and analysis of the data. The only thing that we will have is the statewide report that analyzes all of the data sets from a statewide perspective, with slices for regional and certain demographic groups and things like that. So we are hoping that your colleges will really do presentations to your board of trustees, to your different areas, on your local data as well in context. And hopefully that would happen in the fall.
Yeah, and as it relates to those Alchemor data dashboards, if your whole district is participating and you want us to create a data dashboard that is just one dashboard for the district as a whole, you can just shoot me an email and I'm happy to do that, as long as you let me know who is the proper person to have access to that dashboard. Again, it's just descriptive, but if that's helpful to you, happy to do that.
Will we get the link to the dashboard for real-time descriptions via email? Yes, you will.
Yep.
So again, we have your contacts, you have your survey, you all submitted a main contact and a researcher contact. And so the information will go to the contacts that are identified in your, when you're signed up for the survey. So if you have something different, like Katie just said, or you want to collapse for a multi-college district, we can again talk about that. So Robert asked, what information can we view on the real-time responses dashboard? So again, if you could.
Yep, it's just so if everyone will get a copy of the survey when it goes out, so you can see it yourself, and of course the link so you can see it online as well. It basically is just the descriptives for every single question. Some of it is populated in a figure format, some is in table format. So, just to give an example, it says, I'll just pick one question. So in the last 30 days, how often did you or your children skip meals due to lack of money for food? And then your options are once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, more than 5 times. You're going to see either a pie chart that breaks it down, or actually it's usually a figure and a table. So a pie chart and then a table underneath just saying, 20% of respondents said once, 20% said twice, etc. And it's like that for every individual question. And that's why I mentioned it doesn't necessarily roll it up into, okay, these are the 10 questions that feed into food insecurity. What is my overall rate of food insecurity? But you can get a general pulse on it by looking across those questions.
So Elizabeth asked about deploying the Real College Temple University survey a few years back, and wanting to know if the California Real College questions are the exact same or just the section of the questions. So we've used that, that is our basis. So we received permission from the actual researcher who originally developed it for Temple University. We went through that process in 2023. We have modified some of the questions because some of the national stuff doesn't include, isn't germane to California experience. So when we did the survey in 2023, we slightly adjusted some of the questions to be more California appropriate and specific. We are, for the 2025, also, like Katie said, adding a couple of questions based on what we heard and we know the context, but the majority, really, Elizabeth, are similar and the same. So the large proportion of the survey is the same as previously. And if I have that wrong.
That's absolutely correct. And so if the underneath that question, you're trying to get at how, can we compare our rates from the last administration? Yes, you can feel quite comfortable saying, if your food insecurity rate back then was 60% and this year 62%, it's apples to apples.
I mean, I think the hard thing always, as we were reminded myself and we were writing when we were writing the statewide like survey, is that many times your students change though too. A lot of times they stay the same and are not leaving us as quickly as possible, but that's, it's not the same sample each time. And so we want to make sure that we're considering those things. So
Yeah.
Katie answered the question. So there will be the demographic data for the individuals will be included in the data set. So as they do their demographic markers, will. So will we get an invitation to attend the webinar? Absolutely. So when we do the statewide findings, we will absolutely be sending out really a lot of invitations. We'll be doing presentations at a lot of different places, but you will, Diana, absolutely get an invitation to the statewide thing. So great question. Are there thoughts about piloting a non-English version or subset of questions in non-English?
Tamil, I was gonna defer to you in terms of if you all from the task force have had conversations exploring that, because at least on the logistical side, we do have the ability to translate through a vendor language line who translates survey items into other languages.
So I think what we would love to get from folks is what is some information about again, we're hard pressed on the thing. We haven't had a larger conversation as a task force, but it's definitely a question that I think I'm happy to think about and take back and see what we can do. So if folks want to reach out and let me know like the main languages that folks are interested in, that would be most helpful. I don't want to presuppose anything, but maybe if you could send that, that'd be a great help to me. You have my contact information on the screen, so feel free to send emails there or to Katie, either of us, and we can try to collect this stuff, but mostly me. Katie's like, don't email me. Okay. Are dreamers considered a subgroup of students to disaggregate data?
Not at present, they are not.
Yes, we'll share this video and the slides afterwards, but if you could go back to the timeline slide, Alyssa, so people can see that. So Shannon was curious why so many responses were not able to be used. Did they not finish the survey? So Katie, want to talk about
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. So one thing to note is, we're not sending out we're not sending to students unique links, right? Especially because a lot of the administration is happening on campuses. And so we can't do something where we don't allow multiple responses from the same IP address, right? So the reality is many students open the survey because they just want to see what it looks like. And, you have to click on what college did you attend or do you attend, as that's a requirement to see any of the other survey questions. It's the only required question of it, so that you are able to get your data back for your students only, right? And so we included in the sample, the 60 some thousand, any student who at least went beyond the question. So they at least answered one question that might be of value to you as a college with respect to food and housing and security. They did not need to get to the end of the survey. We realized there's always going to be some drop off. But when we talk about that drop from 80,000 to I think it was 66,000, that is students who are just poking their head in to see what is this? How long is it? And likely came back and filled it out later, but we wanted to be as transparent as possible. That data set, as long as you click any button that says, yes, I consent, beyond, which is the first question, yes, I consent, you are included in the data file. But only, then there is a drop off, because after they get past that, they can see what's ahead of them. And some students will say, okay, I don't have time to do this right now. I'm going to come back to it. And they can, because it's not limited on IP address. And so, yeah, that's it. But just note that the student does not have to complete the whole survey to be included in the sample.
So Sarah asked a question. You mentioned that students will have the option to provide their student ID at the end of the survey, and that we will get this data for the students who choose to provide their student IDs. When we get the data, will the student ID be attached to the other students' data, the responses for that specific question student?
Yes, of
Yes.
course. That is a very good question. And so if they would like to do that, then what they are agreeing to is for that to be included in the data file. So when you get the data file back, you would have all of the information so that you could then link it to something else.
Are we To use the student enter ID number to off, yes. So that's what it is, Cassie. You would use the local. So we'll use all that. So anybody who enters their student ID, we'll do the statewide poll of that. We'll notify the colleges and those students directly, and then you can use that information to do your local incentives is by that student ID number. That's the only way, because otherwise it's
But
anonymous.
they also give their email address, and so if they want to do that instead, they're welcome to. So.
And will colleges create their own marketing materials, QR codes to survey, graphics, logos, etc.? Yes.
So they can, we're going to provide you with sort of the baseline language that you can use, and a QR code that links to the survey, but anything you would like to do to jazz it up, go for it. Feel free.
Elaine asked if students provide their ID, is there language so that student is aware that their ID and responses will be linked? And there is. Any other questions? Excitement? Are you excited? I'm excited. I'm like so excited. I can barely stand it. Like I'm like really grateful to really all of you who are doing work in this space. We know how important it is. Your voice and your work on the ground is just unmatched. And so I'm very, very grateful on behalf of, the CEOs from the California community colleges. I do want to say that on their behalf. And we know adding the survey, and doing this, when students might feel oversurveyed or you feel taxed about it, it is so important. So anything you can do to galvanize your campus community, your college community, get folks to really help students to respond, and will only help you, I think, in the work and the endeavor that we do to create and protect resources for basic needs support, food justice, and all of these different things that we're doing both statewide and nationally. So that's sort of the end of this information session.